Avenged by Fortune, a Batman all-media types fanfic, rated for mature audiences, with additional tags for badass motherfucker Dick Grayson, badass motherfucker Tim Drake, Jason Todd as Red Hood, Jason Todd needs a hug, resurrected Jason Todd needs a hug, resurrected Jason Todd gets a hug, kinda, Dick Grayson as Nightwing, good sibling Dick Grayson, Bruce Wayne as Batman, Bruce Wayne tries to be a good parent, good sibling Tim Drake, Dick Grayson kills Joker, as he should, I'm bad at tagging, hurt comfort, Bat Family feels, protective Bat Family, brotherly love, and revenge. Summary: don't kill, don't hurt, be good, be better. Dick could practically hear Batman whispering in his ear, urging him to not stoop this low, telling him not to participate in the clown's insane game. Yet, Dick couldn't bring himself to care. His brother was dead, killed by this madman who just now threatened to hurt Tim. His last string of restraint snapped. The clown was gonna pay. Dick would make him suffer for ever touching his little wing. Or, Jason finds some interesting footage hidden on the Batcomputer. If I could paint the sky, well, all the stars would shine a bloody red. Blackout days. Phantogram. It was one of those days again. One of those days where Jason couldn't help but snap at everyone in his vicinity. A green tint edged his vision, a constant, painful reminder of everything that had happened the past few years, everything he'd rather erase from his mind. As he stalked past the kitchen, he heard someone rummaging, probably Alfred cleaning up. He shrugged to himself before descending into the Batcave. B was out with the replacement, patrolling the city, and Dickwing was stuck at the tower for one more night. Seeing the Batcave always made Jason regret agreeing to at least try living in the manor again. His hatred of the display of the suit he died in was well known among the others. Jason had made sure of that by smashing the glass to pieces time and time again. They deserved it, he reasoned with himself when confronted with Bruce's sad eyes. Today, Jason decided he would, for once, not let out his anger by destroying the display. Instead, he would go and hack some of Replacement's files, and other shit he kept on the Batcomputer. Sitting down in the chair, Jason cracked his fingers and got to work. He had to give Timmy credit. Everything was secured tightly. Too bad Jason knew all the boys' tricks already. The clacking of keys rang out through the cave, as he bypassed all the safety measures. There wasn't much of interest to find, honestly. Most of the files were ones that Jason had already read at some point. Sighing, he was about to log out when his eyes caught on a folder titled Footage, NW and JKR, sneakily nestled away in one of Replacement's personal files. Obviously, this was some kind of footage B had wanted deleted. Jason's curiosity piqued. What would B want erased so badly that Tim rebelled and made a backup? Safe to say, Jason immediately opened the folder to find security footage in it. Interesting. He honestly hoped this was worth it as he started the video. It was pretty good quality with audio, showing an abandoned warehouse somewhere in Gotham. Dick was having a horrible day. It honestly couldn't have been worse. He was following one of the Joker's trails alone, as B and Robin were dealing with Poison Ivy's shenanigans. To be safe, he hadn't told anyone about what he was doing. Dick didn't need a PhD to know that Bruce would stop him from going after the mad murderous clown alone. He didn't care, though. Glancing up at the sky, Dick knew he needed to do this. He had to confront the bastard. If only to get a semblance of revenge for his brother. Jason. Jason had been too young. Jason hadn't been supposed to die. Jason should have lived. Jason, his little wing, shouldn't have fucking died. Even after a few months had passed since the boy's funeral, Dick couldn't get rid of the emptiness in his chest. This feeling of being incomplete. This feeling of being a failure for not being there for his little brother. His brother, who had been beaten to a bloody pulp with a crowbar while a maniac laughed at his cries of pain. Dick came to a halt on a rooftop overlooking an old, abandoned warehouse at the edge of Gotham. This was where the Joker was. A shiver went down his spine. It looked so much like a trap that it couldn't be anything but a trap. Yet Dick knew that he had to go in, no matter what. The rage and grief inside of him had reached a boiling point. Today, Dick would make the Joker pay. Entering through a broken window, he made sure not to make a noise. The warehouse was mostly empty. There were some papers strewn around, and a few broken chairs and desks. On the wall furthest away from Dick hung an abnormal amount of pictures. From his position, Dick was unable to make out what they showed. After looking around to check if the Joker was around, which he surprisingly wasn't, Dick inched towards the wall. His heart raced as he saw the pictures up close. No. With wide eyes and clammy hands, Dick staggered back. He was on the brink of hyperventilating. This couldn't be. The pictures were of Jason. Jason as he was being brutally tortured by the Joker. These fucking pictures even had little notes beneath them where the Joker elaborated on the fun his little brother had with his Uncle Jay. Dick wanted to throw up. He wanted to tear those goddamn photos off the wall and burn them. Most of all, he wanted to hurt the Joker really badly. His body was rooted to the spot, unable to move. Only his eyes moved from picture to picture, each worse than the last. Seeing how Jason's face got progressively more mutilated had Dick's hands balled into tight fists. The light in his little brother's eyes dimmed more and more in every photograph. Enjoying my little exhibition, are we, Nightwing? A manic laugh had Dick turning around in a flash. The Joker emerged from behind a pillar, spreading his arms wide in a welcoming gesture. Dick narrowed his eyes, his hands immediately reaching for his eskrima sticks. The Joker seemingly ignored Dick's hostile stance as he circled around him towards the picture wall. These are truly masterpieces, a great way to commemorate the amazing time Jason and I had. Get that name out of your mouth, clown! Dick bit out angrily. The amount of restraint Dick had shown was enormous. Every vein in his body burned with anger. Every goddamn cell in his body egged him on to shut the Joker up. To end him. Just like he had ended his little wing. You aren't very chatty, are you? The Joker cackled in glee. No worries. I can deliver the punchline for both of us, Dickie. Dick's body immediately went rigid at the mention of his name. His civilian name. The name no one was supposed to know, except for his family. The Joker seemingly didn't notice. Or he just didn't care as he talked on with that wretched smile on his face. Jason was so stubborn at first, wouldn't tell his Uncle Jay anything. He sneered the last word with an eye roll. I did get his tongue a little looser after a bit, though. Poor soul started to plead for Batman to save him. For his big brother Dickie to get him away from my wonderful company. A chill crept up Dick's spine. His throat closed up, and he felt his eyes get wet. Jason had called for him. Jason had screamed his name, hoping that Dick would come and save him. But Dick never came. And Bruce was too late. And Bruce came too late. He was unhappy being with me at first, but after a while, he and I really had fun. Look at the pictures! I was thinking maybe I could do this again with the new Robin. Don't you think that would just be a blast? Suddenly, it was as if Dick was released from his invisible bonds. Without pausing for a second, he rushed forward and punched the Joker square in the face. Staggering back, the Joker looked at his attacker with a gleeful look, blood running from his nose. What? You don't like that idea? Shut up, Dick snapped. So rude. The clown tutted. I said shut up. Kneeing the Joker in the stomach, Dick watched as the monster crumbled down. Is that all you have, Nightwing? Joker said, in a fit of laughter. Don't kill, don't hurt, be good, be better. Dick could practically hear Batman whispering in his ear, urging him to not stoop this low, telling him not to participate in the clown's insane game. Yet Dick couldn't bring himself to care. His brother was dead, killed by this madman who just now threatened to hurt Tim. His last string of restraint snapped. The clown was going to pay. Dick was going to make him suffer forever touching his little wing. With a determined face, Dick swung his fist at the Joker's face once more. A satisfying crack echoed through the warehouse, as the punch broke the madman's nose. Blood trickled down as the Joker looked at Dick with wide eyes and a big smile. "Oh, that crack sounded almost as nice as Robin's when I broke his nose," he cackled. Dick's eyes narrowed before hauling the Joker up by his collar and slamming him into the wall. "I fucking told you to keep his name out of your mouth, now didn't I?" The Joker reached up with his right hand towards Dick's mouth, only to push up the corner to resemble a smile. "You bats take everything so seriously. Smile a little, Dickie." He laughed uncontrollably. "Big Bad Batsy would be so disappointed to see his precious Nightwing beat poor little old me up." "You know nothing about Batman," Dick gritted out, throwing the Joker to the floor behind him before stalking over. "I will make you feel so much pain that you will forget how to laugh." Jason's laughter rang out in Dick's head. His blinding smile and twinkling eyes were at the forefront of his mind. He would never hear that laugh again, would never see his joyous expression ever again, never hug him again. Dick would never hug his little brother again because he was fucking dead. Consumed by blinding rage, Dick swung his fist down into the clown's face over and over again. He blocked out any sounds the madman made. The only thing he could hear was his little wing screaming his name for help. Help that never came. Dick didn't know how long he had been there, kneeling over the Joker, repeatedly punching him in the face. He hadn't even noticed the gradual silence from the man beneath him. He just kept swinging. "Nightwing? Nightwing! Nightwing!" Suddenly, Dick was yanked off the Joker, roughly shoved aside. His eyes cleared as he recognized Tim in his Robin uniform, crouching beside him, probably checking for non-existent wounds. "Are you okay, Ian?" Tim asked quietly, his face filled with concern. Why would Tim be concerned? Nothing had really happened. That's when Dick saw the scene in front of him. Batman was kneeling over the Joker, or rather, the Joker's bloody and bruised body. Dick saw B check for pulse. But now that he thought about it, the clown had been awfully quiet. Dead. B looked up at Dick with a cold expression. He did it, Dick thought. He succeeded. Jason was avenged. The Joker was dead. "Robin, get over here." Batman snapped gruffly. "Call the emergency services and tell them to prepare for resuscitation." Dick's blood turned to ice. No, Bruce couldn't possibly be serious. "What the fuck do you mean, resuscitation, Bruce?" Dick snarled, finally finding his voice again. Tim hesitated, but stood up and seemingly did what B asked him to do. "Codenames, Nightwing." Batman's tone was the coldest Dick had ever heard it. He turned back to the Joker and started chest compressions. Dick leaped up and shoved B off the Joker. "Like hell you're reviving that monster. You can't be serious." He growled furiously. "I will, and I am. Step back, Nightwing." As B resumed his work, tears rolled down Dick's cheeks. He felt utterly betrayed. How could Bruce do this after everything that had happened? "I will never forgive you for this," he sneered before turning and swinging out of the warehouse through one of the broken windows. Jason sat in front of the Batcomputer, stunned by what he had just seen. The screen turned black, and the silence was suddenly deafening. Dick had killed the Joker. For him. Someone had cared. Dick wouldn't speak to B for 3 months after that. A calm voice spoke from behind him. Turning around, Jason saw a replacement leaning against one of the displays, arms crossed. He was still in full gear, a nasty gash on his forehead. "What are you doing here, Timbo? Thought you were out." Tim walked over to the computer and logged out with a few clicks, before turning to Jason. "I got cut by some killer plant, so B sent me home to patch myself up." He shrugged, gesturing to the gash. Tim paused for a moment. "You know, I didn't call the emergency services at first. B got really pissed about that, and took Robin away for a few weeks." Jason's eyebrows rose in surprise. So Tim wasn't as much of a rule follower as he appeared to be. The Joker was dead. Why bring him back? He shrugged at Jason. The bastard had taken Robin away from this world. My Robin. So why did B resuscitate the clown then? Jason leaned back in the chair and looked up at Tim. He didn't want Dick to get his hands dirty. Ah, yes. Boy Wonder's hands cannot be tainted. Jason snarked sarcastically. Tim peeled off his mask and turned around before speaking again. After hearing that, Dick punched Bruce and shouted obscenities at him. I would have done the same. Jason sighed. He was pissed that Batman just had to save his murderer. But his appreciation for Dick had increased tenfold. And the replacement, he added belatedly. Thanks for keeping the footage. No problem, Robin. You would have done the same. Pushing himself out of the chair with a sigh, Jason slung an arm around Tim and walked him up the stairs. Let's get you patched up. Fuck, Tim was growing on him. The next day, Tim and Dick both found boxes filled with cookies and a small thank you note on them. Thank you for your efforts. Count me avenged. J. Notes. Hehehe. Somehow, I never found a lot of the fics about Dick killing the Joker. So I wrote my own. I hope you enjoy. Please feel free to leave a comment, and come find me on my newly made Tumblr page. I'd love to hang out with you and exchange theories and ideas. Have a wonderful day/night. Dear author, whenever or if you ever listen to this, give me a pronunciation guide. I would love a pronunciation guide. Jason Tog. Jason Tog? There's my attempt. I can't do angry. I can usually get across happy, but angry is not my forte. Meow? Meow? Do you also want Nightwing to smile? Yeah? Bye-bye. She was very offended at the thought of resuscitating the Joker. Jason sat in front of the Batcomputer. Why can I not say Batcomputer now?